Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So in this video we'll be deploying a web app in Azure. So basically what we're going to do is we'll be creating a .NET MVC project. We'll push it through Git to our Azure DevOps. We'll use the CI/CD pipeline using Classic Editor to deploy our application to our Azure portal. Right, so first of all what I'm going to do is I'm back on my command prompt. Over here I'm going to use a simple .NET MVC project. So first of all, let me just go on my music folder. That's where I keep most of these projects, but you can use any, doesn't make a difference. So I'll create a directory here. I'll do mkdir. Let's call it hello world. I'll just go inside hello world, and over here what I'm going to do is going to create first of all a solution file. So this is basically for my code. If you're using another form, Java or anything, that's going to be a different procedure. So, but this is just for the .NET. So I'll do .NET new sln -o and hello. Let's give it hello world app. So you can see the solution file has been created. Now let me go in my solution file, and I will give it .NET -new MVC -n hello world. Let's call it web. Right, so that was successful. You can see my CS project has also been created. Alright guys, so what I'm going to do is next is going to be I'm going to initialize Git. Now I did create another video on Git, so if you're new to Git or you haven't used Git, I suggest you just looking at my video. So let's do Git init. I'll initialize, has been initialized. Now I'm going to go back to my Azure DevOps and we'll create a repository over there, a project first. So let's go back there and let's do create a new project. Let's call it hello world, and yeah, let's create the project. And you can, if I scroll to my repository, you can see my repository is blank. We'll be using this command to push an existing repository from command line. This is what we can do. So I'll go back on my command line. I have initialized Git. So next I'm going to do is I'm going to do git add everything. I'll do git commit -m. Let's call it, you're gonna call it first. Right, so I'm going to go back and use this command to push an existing repository from command line. Just hit that. And that's all done. Now guys, as I said, if you haven't used Git, I did create another video on it, and you can have a look at this, exactly what steps we did, but I'm not going to spend too much time on Git over here. Alright guys, so you can see the project that we created has been pushed in our remote repository. So you can see in our repository we have that. Alright, so next what I'm going to do is I'll be creating a release, I'll be creating a pipeline. So I'll do, if I go on pipelines, I'll go on pipelines and I'll do create a pipeline. Now here it's asking me where's your code, but for this video I'll be using the classic editor. I do know nowadays a YAML is a better way of doing CI/CD pipeline. We'll be doing that in the next video. I'll be creating the same identical video and we'll do it through YAML, but I still believe that if you're doing it for the first time, it's good to have a bit knowledge of the classic editor, because it does actually give you a bit of a background what's actually happening, and once you know that, it's quite easy if you're using a YAML after this. So I'll use classic editor, and here saying select our resource. Now depending on your source resource source, sorry. Depends where it is. R is in Azure repository, so I'll do continue. It's the master branch. Right, so I'll be using our ASP.NET Core. Let me shrink this a bit. I think it's not picking up. Yeah, apply. I think it's bit out. I'll do apply. Right guys, so as soon as it apply, you can see these steps it automatically added. So if you were building this project in your command line or you were doing it in Visual Studio Code, you'll run the same commands as restore, build, test, publish, and publish artifacts. The only difference is Azure over here, the DevOps, will be doing it through our CI pipeline. So that's the reason I wanted us to do it through the classic editor. So you can see it's doing everything automatically. So guys, you can see it's so it's going to restore, build, test, and publish. All right. So what I'm going to do is next is I'm going to skew it. Let me just save and run. And our build has started. It's the same steps as if you're using any project. Same steps. It's going to restore, build. We could do that in command line. We're just doing it here as a demonstration purposes. And you can see the artifacts. It's produced one artifact. I'll create another video on artifacts going a bit more detail. But for now, we'll just leave this as it is. That's the artifact that it's created. Alright guys, so we've done our build. Now the next is going to be our release. So I'll go on release, that's underneath pipeline. New pipeline. I'm going to do an empty job here. Just leave that for a sec. So first of all, artifacts. So where are our artifacts? It's asking us. So in our case, it's in our build. Now, depending how you were doing it, you could have your artifacts somewhere else. But for this video, for now, we have our artifacts in our build. And I really need to adjust the screen. And that's our artifacts. It's auto-populated. And it's asking for the version, just latest. The source alias, I'm just going to leave that, add it over here. So our artifact has been added. Now in the coming videos, we could create more stages, or we will create more stages, and I could name them as dev, UAT, pre-prod, production. But this is just going to be like a test video, so I'm just doing it quite simple. So I'll go on my jobs, and on our jobs I'll plus that. And it's going to be our Azure App Service Deploy, and it's giving a good definitions to deploy our app services. I'm going to add that over here. Right, and before that we do one thing. We will need an app service on our Azure portal. So I'll go back to my Azure portal now, and I'm going to go on create a web app. So I'll go on my create resources, a web app, create a web app. Just going to give resource 1 name, let's give it Gotham 678. Now it's asking publish. At this stage we're using code, we're not using Docker. The run stack is going to be .NET Core, and I'm just going to leave everything as default. So our web app is being created. Shouldn't take a long. I'm just going to pause this video for a sec. If it's that's done. So that's our web application has been completed. I didn't need to pause it. So I'll go back on our Azure service deploy, and it's going to ask for authentication. So first of all, I'm going to give my subscription. Now guys, if you were using at present I'm using the same subscription as my Azure DevOps and as my Azure portal, but if you had a different username for both, probably you'll need to create a service connection. We'll talk around that in another video, but it's going to be, you'll create a service connection, and but let's leave that for a sec, and I'll just write my subscription, authorize. It's going to ask my email. I need to authenticate. Let's do that quick. I'm just going to pause the video for a second just to add. I think it needs. I can skip that for now. Alright guys, that's done. I just paused the video as it was asking my phone number. I didn't want to put that on. Yeah, so that's authenticated. Next is going to ask me my web app service, and has it not populated itself? We can just copy paste the name itself. If it says Gotham 7, that's our, I can just copy paste that name over there. Our app service name, it was asking our app service name, and I'm just going to leave this feed for now. We'll just leave this as it is, and I'm going to save it. Now we've done our authentication. I'm going to create our release. Create the release. The release has been created, and you can see manually triggered by me. That's our artifacts, and it's creating our stage. I could open this and you can see, let's see what's happening. And still running. Well, I'm not going to pause the video, so because just let's see what it does. If that time goes over a minute, oh, it's done. So our stage 1 has succeeded. Let's have a look at our web application that it has created. So I go on my app service. That's the URL is created, and let's open our URL. And there we are, our website is functioning. Gotham 678, hello world. This is the web ASP.NET web app we created. Alright guys, so if we just wrap up before I close this video, what we did was we created our ASP.NET web app. I pushed it through Git into our remote repository. From there we created a build using pipeline. I used ASP.NET as the classic editor. From there we created a release, and from the release we deployed our web application, and that's our running web application. Alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a bit, we did try to go on just touching some basic things. In the next video I'll create the same steps, I'll do the same steps, but this time we'll use YAML, and then from there we can try adding additional stuff as having more stages, as deploy, dev, prod, and pre-prod, and we can just play around with that. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video.